Everybody. Oh, I am so excited to introduce to you. They're co-authors of the book Mindful Loving, Diana Basinger, as well as Kathleen Todd, and they are parenting coaches, and they are here to serve you. What do you guys have to say about what parents could be doing right now to strengthen their relationship with their kids during this tumultuous time in history?
I think the big message, Marissa, is be patient. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with your children. And trust that you have laid a very strong foundation that is being, upside down right now. But a lot of my parents are feeling guilty that they're not doing enough, or that they're losing their patience and they're feeling angry, and they have these, outbursts, and then they start talking about how the children are changing and they're becoming more sensitive. And, my message to parents is, first and foremost, hold up a mirror, because the anxiety that your children may be experiencing could in part be how you're managing. And so manage whatever anxiety you have about what's happening in the world. Reach out to people, reach out to your spiritual community, reach out to your friends, reach out to each other, family members, and get grounded yourself, because you'll be so much more able to then ground those little kids. One of my clients, she said her daughter, her greatest fear is she's not going to be able to have her 6-year-old birthday party. Mm-hmm. Right? So she's just always drawing things and saying, I'm so scared, nobody's going to come. And my client was saying, they're going to come. But every day the little 6-year-old went into this obsessive, conversation and planning. And, mom was just getting so overwrought with all this information. And I said, go with it. As a matter of fact, do something she would not expect and ask her to have a conversation. What are her ideas, and would she write them down, and would she draw them? And then she could have a conversation, because then mom was not taken by surprise by this urgent energy of planning this birthday party, but she went with it, and she gave her daughter the space to channel her own anxiety. So at the end of the day, be patient, be loving with yourself, and you'll be more available to coping with the children's experiences.
Yes, Di's absolutely right. The first place is it always starts with us, and to be a good caretaker to yourself. And it's a difficult thing to do when we're confined to our home with everybody around. So it's important to find those little moments of time, or to schedule those moments where each of us as parents, you take the time to be alone, whether it's taking a bath or spending some time alone in the bathroom, or going outside and, standing out in nature, or doing something that is, that provides the opportunity to get centered with yourself. And because the better we are in terms of being centered and mindful, the more able we are to deal with all the stresses around us. And there are multiple stresses. Part of what makes this such a difficult situation, is because it's so unprecedented. Nobody has the blueprint or a map in terms of how to do this. And it's not only not having the map, but it's also with the overlay of the uncertainty. There are so many fears. Am I going to get sick? Are my kids going to get sick? Or, oh my gosh, I can't bring this into my family, or I can't see loved ones. And it is so important. One of the things that I think is so important is we change from social isolation to physical isolation. We're not socially isolated. We can't be. We are social beings. We need to be connected. And that's part of self-care. And so to find ways to make sure you, as adults, is that we have a connection with other adults, which is this format, which is everybody, coming together and saying, okay, yes, it's we're all in the same boat.
Absolutely.
There are the other thing that we do know that happens is that when we are confined there with the stress reaction, it is important to make a plan and identify some stress management techniques. And so in the book, we talked about, and this is for couples in all relationships, is we talked about the concept of reset the moment. And it's so important is that we, you know, with all the big stuff that's happening, you know, when your kid starts irritating you or crying or whatever, having a meltdown, it's to stop. And the first thing is to breathe, is to take deep breaths. We know that with deep breaths, we can reset our neurochemistry. It just 5 deep breaths can affect the fight or flight response. And so it calms us down. The other thing is that we talk about 3 different techniques that help reset the moment. And one of them is called, I'll talk about one of them, Di, and then you can talk about a couple more. The one that I love is oops and ouch. And so when something happens that irritates you, instead of getting into a long discussion about it, it's to stop for a moment and just simply say, oops, I blew it. Oops, I'm sorry. And let's reset the moment. The other thing is to, excuse me about that, is the other thing is when you're hurt, to be able to say, ouch, that hurt. And then the other person can say, oops, you're right. And let's reset and go on, which leads us to the do-over. We get to say, let's do this over. Okay, let's just agree, you know, that was then, this is now. Okay, take some deep breaths and let's just do this over and forget what happened. And then you want to talk about taking a time out, Di?
Well, timeouts can come, I'll just kind of reference for children, right? Because I'm sure many parents get that. And the interesting thing is we are more apt to implement timeouts with our children, right? That's a good discipline, you know, teaching them to get themselves under control. But sometimes we don't realize, hello, I need a timeout. I was just working with a mom and I said, when do you get your alone time? She's working, he's working, and they've got 2 children, ages 7 and 5 in the home. She goes, are you kidding me? I go, no, I'm sorry, I forgot. But what it does mean, especially in this day and age, it's not just about disrupt the unpleasant or the challenge of the moment. Taking a time out today to go out in your backyard and see the sunset. Take a time out and go on Google and Google when the next full moon is. You know, is equip yourself with some compassion and some practices that you can take a time out for, so that you are replenishing yourself in the face of these challenges and adversity. So those are just some of the ideas, you know, as it relates, you know, to what can you do today? What can you do right now? You know, with Kathleen's reference, take a deep breath, light a candle, create rituals that give you a setting the time for a good day. Right. Turn on music. You know, sometimes I turn on kids' music, right? Because I miss my grandchildren. And I just figure, okay, well, if Ari was here, what would she be listening to? And I'm just going, you know, Will Ferrell's Be Happy, you know, and I'm just strutting around the house and, you know, getting some exercise and lifting my spirit and connecting with family as a grandparent. You know, I think, again, the message to parents, what can you do? Do for you first, because you will be in the best position to do for your children thereafter.
Yes. You know, it is difficult, but the most important thing, I think, is to stay enough in the moment. Yet there is this question about what's next and what is going to happen and what do we do when this is over. One of the analogies I heard that I really did like was that we're in the situation that might be similar to being in an airplane. You know, when the pilot comes over and it says, you know, ladies and gentlemen, we're hitting some turbulence. And so we want you to get in your seat, stay put, buckle up, you know, put your tray tables back. The flight attendants are going to, you know, pick up all the glasses for a moment and just, we're going to ride this out. And some of that is what we're needing to do right now. The difference, though, is that in an airplane, we're expecting we're going to land, we'll get through this turbulence, and then we're going to get off the plane and get on with our normal life. The difficulty now is we're at a new normal, and we don't know about our new life. None of us know what it's going to look like on the other side. And so one of the things that is fun to do is to fantasize about, all right, what do we want to do? Some of it is returning to what are those things I want to return to? And as you were saying, Marissa, what are some things that maybe I don't want to return to anymore? This is a little bit of a forced retreat for us to be thoughtful and go, okay, this is an opportunity to rewrite our lives and to discard some things that have not worked. This is a blessing in disguise in so many ways. And to be proactive and think about, on the other side now, these are the things that we're instituting now and that we are going to continue to institute when this is over. So it's a time of creativity and of planning. And it's important to use it, not constantly. So I would encourage people to do it just periodically, just kind of flip with it and do it and then let it go and come back to it and redo it again. And it's like, oh yeah, I don't like that idea anymore. I like this one. It's a brainstorming kind of technique. So be creative with the process and know that we're the architects. We get to be the architects of our new future, and we get to make it positive and beautiful and wonderful and compassionate and loving in ways that maybe we were off course before. So you want to add to that, Ty?
Well, I think Marissa had a question. I was curious what it might be. Did you have one?
I love that you were saying, Kathleen, we get to, rather
Yes.
than we have to. We get to. So how, Diana, can you encourage people to choose that we get to architect our life from now on?
Right.
And I think that might be hard to grasp for some parents.
Well, it's interesting that this is even being spoken to, because just today I was really thinking about, because I have access to so many stories of people, a couple in Poland and then locally here, from teachers to therapists to families to moms and dads. And I stopped and I thought, we are going to be reading about this in history books. And yet we are creating a legacy for our family, because every family is going to have their story about how they experience this global health crisis. And I stopped and I thought, okay, what is your story going to be? It absolutely has to include this whole notion of shock, disbelief, acknowledging a destabilization from what was familiar to what became somewhat familiar, but then we have to go into the unknown. And so I would say to families, not to just debrief all the time, because I do think a point, I was working with one mom today, she said, we really don't talk about it around our 6-year-old. Okay, we don't talk about it around our 6-year-olds. But the one thing that prompts me to say too, that one of the strategies they're using is dad's working at home. He's on the dining room table with his laptop. The 6-year-old has her laptop on and she's doing her homeschooling. And so I think with that new practice, right, it would be worthy to capture the response the 6-year-old could have to this question. And this is how you start creating your own family story. What do you like about sitting at the table with dad? Do you want to do anything else while we're here? If we take our break, you want to do a little game. A little game that can collect data for this family story is, let's go and respond to, give a high for the day. What was the low for the day? And what was a ha? what was a funny moment. This is a practice. And again, to Kathleen's point about what are we going to be doing after this? We want to identify by thinking about what do you want your family story to be about how we survived. You speak about the fears. My little 7-year-old granddaughter, she was emailing me and she says, Nana, this is really scary. And then she went on to talk about something else. But I acknowledged that. And I said to her, of course, it's scary, and I think that's something parents can do, is to not try to take the fear away in that moment, but to validate it. Of course, it's scary. And then I just went on to say, you're going to hear a lot of different things. And the most important resource, the most important person to ask questions to and to listen to are your parents. So that equips parents with, preparation for questions that come from the children. So what is going to be your family legacy as you will be written up in these history books, right? What is your family story going to be as you move forward? I have families who are talking about, going out and having water balloon fights. I mean to tell you, from parents who never thought to buy balloons and have water fights before this event even happened, right? So that, they can put that activity and that experience and that story, into their resource bag. What are some of the things that we're doing, like the side-by-side work, that's going to be part of our family story in how we survived. And the other part I want people to really think about is the experience. This is how I'm trying to craft it, this is an experience that involves the grieving. It is grieving the loss of what we've known. It is grieving our sense of sensibility, and we're grieving the loss of control. We're grieving the loss of what we've known. And there's a wide range of feelings that come through the grieving process. At the end of that experience, we're going to feel shock. We're going to feel angry. We're going to feel scared. We're going to kind of try to negotiate. Well, if only this, then I wouldn't feel that. And then we come to an awareness, like, okay, this is what it is. Then what do I do? All of us have done that. This is what it is. I'm increasing my use of hand sanitizer. So we put something to practice that we have control over. At the end of this, Marissa, we will walk away with, what was the meaning of this? What was the meaning? How can we exercise the practice of watching the full moon? How can we exercise these strategies and extract for our family story the things that we walked away with, the traditions we reinforced or we created? I have one client who said, one of the things that we have suspended, I love this about her. She said, oh, well, we used to have dinner together. She said, well, in the last 4 weeks, we're kind of eating on the couch. And she said, I'm beginning to feel like I want to go back to some things that we have done. And I said, guess what? That's a perfect way to start. Do the discipline, create a routine, but add the component of involving the children. Have fun having them rotate between setting the table and in helping out with chopping lettuce or something. And get that meal back at the table and get the conversations of lightness going around the table for that window of time. And that can be part of the family story. What did we have to begin with that may have gotten disrupted, but we came back to because it's a value that we have. And it's something that's very strong in our family base. And it's something we will continue at some level with greater appreciation for mundane things.
Right. So, one of the most important, a real key that hit me, Diane, what you said is, as we create our vision for the future, and that's kind of what we get to do. And yes, it is the word get, it's not have to, is to not discount the power of our children's creativity.
Yeah.
without all the negative stuff that that we're carrying as adults. Children are so resilient and so creative, and they can be so light and bring us so many unimaginable ideas for how to create, because they are our future. And so to involve them in the process of creating this vision for how do we want our family to be, is that this is this opportunity. It is the best antidote to the feelings of hopelessness and grief that we're going through, is to look at what we get to do, how we can be empowered to do something. And we all do get to do something in creating our stories and our future.